Great. So I know most people are probably just going to watch, but we can tell that Tracy's going to do it because she's got her apron on. Go, Tracy.
With a little bit of made-up ingredients.
That's fine. Gazpacho is very adaptable. You can make it as you like, really. Lots of people put all kinds of different things in it than are in this particular recipe, so go for it. The only bits of quick kitchen equipment you need apart from a blender are a chopping board and a sharp knife, and that's it. Don't even have to turn your oven on, which is great. So I was never really a fan of cold soup until I discovered this on special order at Ocado. It's a carton of gazpacho, and now I always have this in my fridge because when you've been writing for hours and you eventually get up and go into the kitchen and you're starving, very easy to just eat a packet of crisps. But now I have a glass of this and it's like one of your 5 fruit and veg a day. And I've recently discovered how easy it is to make gazpacho. So I'm going to talk you through how to do it. It's very, very easy. So the recipe we're following today is by this wonderful film star, Anne Francis, who's posing here with her little kitty, which someone told me they think is an ocelot. So, you know, when you're a famous film star in the past, you could have pets like these. So Anne Francis is important to me because she is in the pilot episode of Murder, She Wrote. And some of you will know that I'm working on a Murder, She Wrote cookbook. And in this cookbook will be loads of recipes from Angela Lansbury, the star of Murder, She Wrote, and many of her co-stars. So Anne Francis is in the pilot episode, and her recipe is here. And it's in this book called The Celebrity Cookbook. And I'm going to talk a bit about celebrity recipes once we've made our gazpacho, because you make your gazpacho and then you put it in the fridge to chill for a bit so that it's really nice and cold when you want to eat it. So without further ado, let's make gazpacho. So first ingredient is half a clove of garlic. My cloves are quite big. If you've got really small cloves of garlic, you might want to put a whole one in. Depends how garlicky you like your food. So peel your clove of garlic. If it's quite a big clove, I tend to sort of chop it up into 4 bits, just so that it gets more evenly distributed in your blender. So peel your garlic, chop it up a little bit and stick it in the blender. And the next ingredient is half an onion. So I'm using a red onion, but you can just use a white onion. So I've got half a red onion here. You just slice that, just roughly. It doesn't have to be any particular size because it's all going in the blender and it will get mushed up, chopped up. So just slice that up. I've sliced it into pretty thick slices. That gets put in the blender. You can see Tracy is working away. I can't see everybody, yes. So I don't know how many people are joining in, but I will try not to go too quickly. Next, half a green pepper. So what you want to do is get rid of all the white membrane and the seeds and the stalk. So get your sharp knife, get rid of all that. And gazpacho, you can kind of vary how much of things you put in. So Anne's recipe is a bit vague when she says a small cucumber. So I'll show you how much cucumber I use for 3 tomatoes, just to give you a kind of idea. But really, you can put as much of each ingredient in as you like. If you like a really tomatoey gazpacho, you could put more tomatoes in, or more pepper, or more cucumber, whatever you like. So I've taken all the bits and bobs out of my pepper, and I'm just going to chop that into quite thick chunks. This is so quick to do and so good for you, so healthy, really healthy. So there's my pepper. I'm just getting rid of all the pippy bits. I'll drop that on the computer. So you just chop them into quite big chunks. Hopefully your blender is a nice powerful one and it will chop them all up. Next up is 3 ripe tomatoes. I'm using plum tomatoes, they're quite big ones. If you've got much smaller ones, you might want to use 4, but I'm using 3 fairly big plum tomatoes. Now, if you like to make a really smooth gazpacho, you can peel your tomatoes. I'm not doing that today because I'm just giving you a quick demo. But the best way I've found of peeling tomatoes is to put them in a dish, pour boiling water over them, and then stick them under the cold tap. And then the skin peels off really, really easily. But you can leave the skin on. I quite like it. It's more roughage. And, you know, if you're not serving it at a super fancy dinner party where you want it to be completely smooth, you can leave the skins on your tomatoes. So cut your tomatoes into quarters. You're going to bung them in the blender. So just, if you've got really big tomatoes, I might actually cut mine into 8s because they are quite big. So chunks. Pop those in your blender. And some gazpachos have olive oil in them. This one doesn't. But if I'm serving it in a bowl, which I sometimes do, you can drizzle a nice bit of olive oil over the top and you can chop up some extra cucumber or extra pepper and put that over the top as a garnish to make it super fancy. But personally, I like drinking gazpacho just from a glass because I find it a bit weird eating cold soup with a spoon. I know that's probably how you're supposed to do it, but I quite like just having a glass of it, which saves you washing up, doesn't it? If you're not having a spoon. But also you can serve gazpacho in really small glasses if you're having a fancy dinner party. I'm kind of dreaming of having a fancy dinner party. I haven't had one for quite some time, but one day it will happen again. So I've got the tomatoes in there now with the garlic, the onion and the pepper. So Anne's recipe says a small cucumber. So I don't know what a small cucumber would have been in the 1970s in America when this recipe was published, but I use about 1/4 of a standard English cucumber. You know, the ones you get in the supermarket. But if you've got those nice little, I think of them as Lebanese cucumbers, the little thin ones that you sometimes pickle, you could put a couple of those in, 2 or 3. It's really up to you. And what you can do is as well, once you've blended it all up, you can taste it and see if you want to put in more tomato or more pepper or whatever you fancy. So again, just chop your cucumber into chunks. Like big chunks like that. Doesn't really matter, it's all going to get blended up. That goes in your blender. I've actually got a nice see-through blender, so it's quite appealing. It's quite festive having all your bits and bobs in your see-through blender. So that's all your veggies, and then you add to that. I'll do this slowly in case anyone's a bit behind because I've been racing through it. I can repeat it if you need it. 1 teaspoon of salt. A 1/4 of a teaspoon of pepper. I mean, I have got cracked pepper that I use for recipes, but if you haven't got cracked pepper, you just give it a good few grinds of your pepper grinder. So I can't really show you a tea. That's a quarter of a teaspoon of black pepper. It's quite a lot, really. So I'd say like 30 grinds or 40 grinds of your pepper grinder. I like things with black pepper in, so I'd go for it. Go for it. Get your black pepper in there. Next, 3 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. You can probably use white wine vinegar, apple cider vinegar. You could probably even use malt vinegar if that's all you've got for your chips, but recipe says red wine vinegar, so that's what I'm going to use. So 3 tablespoons of that. And then the last thing is half a cup of iced water. So I've just put some water in my fridge a couple of hours ago. If you haven't done that, it doesn't really matter. You could just use half a cup of cold water from your tap, or a big handful of ice cubes I sometimes put in. I mean, if you want to eat it straight away, then ice cubes are good because you know that immediately makes it nice and cold. But in theory, you put it in the fridge for 10 minutes. Her recipe says 10 minutes, half an hour, make it really nice and cold. So putting that in. So I'm just going to go through the recipe for those that are making it, just in case I've been rushing through too much. You've got your half a clove of garlic, half a small onion sliced, half a green pepper, 3 tomatoes quartered, or 8 if they're big, a small cucumber peeled. I do tend to peel the cucumbers. You can just use unpeeled cucumbers, but sometimes cucumber skins are a bit bitter. So I do tend to peel them, but if you haven't peeled it, don't worry, bung it in. 1 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, 3 tablespoons of vinegar, and your half a cup of iced water. And that, my friends, is it. So I'm going to put the lid on my blender now. And before I blend it up, I'm just going to talk a little bit about movie star recipes and how I started collecting them and how fabulous they are. So I'm a film archivist by training. I did a film degree and then I did a master's in film archiving. So I'm a legally qualified film archivist, and I've been obsessed with movie stars since I was a small kid, really. And I started collecting movie star postcards when I was quite young. And then one day I went into a stamp and postcard shop in Norwich, and I saw this: favourite recipes of the movie stars. It was in a glass cabinet. It had a sticker on it. There, £12 it was. And I said, "Can I have a look at that, please?" And when he got it out of the cabinet, I was like, oh my God. I don't know if you can see. So pictures of movie stars, icing cakes, making all kinds of goodies. It's just like, I just immediately had to have it. Look, there's a recipe for a radish sandwich there. That sounds exciting, doesn't it? So this was from 1931, and it's got all the stars of the day, many of whom will be totally forgotten now. Most remembered in here is probably Gary Cooper and Clara Bowes in here. Their work days, yes, they were. But I just fell in love with this, and that is how I began collecting movie star recipes. So the 30s, it kind of started in the 1910s. People wanted to know what their actor and actress idols had to eat. So in the 1910s, the earliest cookbook I've got, which is a collection of actors' recipes, is 1917. And the real heyday for it was the 1930s. So you've got magazines like this. There were lots of fan magazines. People were really obsessed with movie stars. They wanted to know what their houses were like, what clothes they were wearing, what they were eating. So there were lots and lots of articles about movie stars and what they like to eat. So this magazine here has got an article about Anne Sheridan, salads for Sheridan, and it features something very popular in the 1930s, a gelatine ring. So it's like aspic, but you know, they used to put things in aspic, didn't they? I have attempted some of these things, well, many of these things, not that one though. And so the 30s is really my favourite era for all the ephemera. And in the 30s, it was really when movie stars started to be used to promote products. So this amazing and beautiful booklet, you might be able to guess what this was promoting by looking at the pictures. Yeah. So it's brilliant. It's got all these menus of movie star food. And here's an example, someone that some of you might know. Ginger Rogers. Is it coming out the right way around or back to front?
Yeah.
Right way around. Ginger Rogers. So this is a kind of whole menu. And there she is, standing by the Norge refrigerator. So every single recipe in this book says chill in the Norge, or, you know, leave to rest in the Norge, because it's a promotional thing for Norge refrigerators, and I just think it's a beautiful thing. And one more before we blitz our gazpacho. I was showing this to KK earlier because it just makes me laugh. The new herring book. Aren't herrings delicious? Says Merle Oberon. Yes, they are. There's no recipes attributed to Merle Oberon in here. I do not know what she's doing on the cover. They obviously just paid her. They said, will you promote herrings? And she said, yes, I will. And there she is. So I am going to put myself on mute while I put the blender on because it's very noisy. And KK is going to throw out a question for you. So I'll be back in a tick.
Okay, Ron, while Jenny is blendering, she did ask me to ask you if you have any favorite movie stars and if you're curious about one of their recipes. So movie stars, anyone from the 1920s to 1950s, if you want, put their name in the chat box with your email address, and Jenny's going to come up with a recipe. So anyone from the 1920s to 1950s, and if you want, pop on the mic as well. We can chat while she's blendering and showing us something there.
I'm back.
You're back. Okay. That's all right, phone.
I have blended my gazpacho, folks. Now it's quite pink. You know what the gazpacho you usually get is very red. Now I think this is because Anne's recipe has a green pepper in it. So if you wanted a redder gazpacho, you could use a red pepper instead. But I love this blender because it's got a tap on it. So you can kind of pour your gazpacho from the bottom. And it's for cocktails, really. But it's nice for a gazpacho. So I'm just going to pop that on there. I'll just show you a few more cookbooks because I am slightly obsessed. So you get these beautiful things like this, Cookbook of the Stars. And here is, who knows who this is? My favourite, Joan Crawford. So I self-published a book called Cooking with Joan Crawford. So I just wanted to do it because I had all these brilliant colour postcards of Joan Crawford in my collection. I'm trying to find you a good one. And I just thought, oh, look, I've got loads of her recipes. So I made a book that has her recipes and some of my postcard collections. So I guess you would call this vanity publishing, because I just really wanted to do it. I just wanted to make this book. So I did that, and I can't remember when I did that. That was years and years ago. I'm very proud of it. I really like it. So that was my first cookbook that I published. And then in 2018, I combined my love of Columbo, the television detective series, with my movie star recipe collection, because I used to have a DVD player in my kitchen on top of my fridge here. So I would watch stuff while I was cooking, half watch them. And I started watching all the Columbos because I loved them as a kid. I really loved them. And there were all these movie stars popping up, like Vincent Price was in one, Janet Leigh was in one, Leonard Nimoy, William Shatner, all these great stars. And I thought, well, I wonder if I've got any recipes for these guys. And I did. So I did a book. Right, so I did this book, Cooking with Columbo, in 2018. So it's got, there's no pictures in this one. It's episode guides and recipes for each episode from one of the co-stars. So Donald Pleasance is in one, his no-name curry's in there. So a self-publishing guru that I followed said you should set yourself a goal of how many copies of your self-published book you would like to sell. And I thought, you know, well, I might sell 100. Might sell 100. So that was my goal. And to date, on Amazon, I have sold over 3,000 copies of this book. I'm not joking. I did a tot up just before this. 3,001 paperback copies of this I've sold on Amazon. And for those of you that are talking about money, Tracy Bickley, I hope you're listening. She's disappeared. I sold 3,000 copies, Tracy. Oh, she's got her gazpacho. And listen, I make £4 a copy. Who's got a calculator? That is a lot of money. So what I'm saying is, if you have a very niche...
So tasty.
Yes! Oh, it's good, isn't it? Did you put plenty of garlic in it?
Oh, I've made a whole bloody Vitamix. Yes. And I put 5 cloves of garlic in, and it's just like, oh, really hit in the back of my mouth.
Fantastic.
Can I freeze some of it?
Say again?
Can I freeze some of it?
Tried freezing it, but you know what, it lasts a long time in the fridge.
I'll just put it in the fridge,
like 5 days, 5 or 6 days probably. It will last in the fridge. You could try freezing it. It might crystallize a bit, but that doesn't really matter, does it? You can pretend it's granita.
Oh, it's so good. It's really good.
Isn't it good? Yeah. It's really refreshing, fresh, because you know all those fresh vegetables, raw veggies, vegan, obviously, and it's just so healthy, and it's so much better for you than a bag of crisps. Although I do like my pickles.
I'm not giving up my bag of crisps.
No, neither am I.
I've got to have some fucking comforts in life. I'm sorry.
I agree. I know. I was thinking before this. I was thinking, wonder if you could put a shot of vodka in it, like a Bloody Mary. It would be like a bloody gazpacho, I suppose.
I'm going to try that.
Now, so I think KK was asking you guys if you had any film stars that you wanted to see if I had any recipes for. Just before I throw it out, I thought I'd show you. So most of the recipe books that I have a compilation, lots of different stars in one book, but there are several movie stars who have written whole cookbooks by themselves. The very, very gorgeous and glamorous Sophia Loren. So Nigella Lawson has got nothing on Sophia Loren. If you Google Sophia Loren and cooking, you will find the sexiest photos of anyone cooking in the world. And yes, Mitch, you're absolutely right. Her cookbooks are excellent. She's written, I think, 3 cookbooks. They're really nicely written. And as writers, of course, that's another interesting thing about cookbooks. Some of them are very evocative. You know, the way she writes her recipes, you just feel like you're in Italy. sitting at her table with her lovely boobs, enjoying some beautiful Italian food. So yes, she's a really good cook and a really nice writer. My absolute all-time Hollywood heartthrob, Yul Brynner. I absolutely love Yul Brynner. I go all week at the knees whenever I see him. And he wrote a cookbook, but food writers will love this. He acknowledges his co-writer. So he wrote this with a proper food writer. So they're his recipes. Sorry, I'm quite hot. I'm sweating a bit. They're his recipes, but he's co-written them with a proper food writer. So he acknowledges that, which is really nice. The master of them all, Mr. Vincent Price. Vincent Price wrote several cookbooks, and this is the best cookbook in the world. Look at the size of it. So Vincent Price and his wife Mary travelled all around the world, and they got recipes from all the best restaurants in the entire universe. Now, for example, does anyone recognise this London eatery? I bet Barry does. Barry's good at this sort of stuff.
Is it the Worsley?
You're close. The windows might give it away. You might not be able to see. It's the Ivy.
Ah.
So that was the Ivy. This book came out
the seating.
Yeah, this came out in 1965. So he's got recipes from the Ivy. He writes about it. There's a nice roast beef and Yorkshire puddings. It's a brilliant book. And again, what I was saying about Sophia, he writes these fantastic, they're called head notes to recipes. And you can hear his voice. They're beautifully written. It's an amazing cookbook. Put it on your Christmas list. One for KK. I bought this after the 24-hour London Writers Salon write-along, write-along, whatever it was called, because you were playing Olivia Newton-John stuff, and I thought, well, she was in some movies. She'll count for silver screen stuff, won't she? So
What's
I've made
her
her
voice like writing that?
Huh?
What's her writing voice like?
It's nice, actually.
Yeah.
She's quite well, she's very into health because she's a cancer survivor, and she's set up a place in somewhere in Australia that's like a kind of health farm type place. So her recipes are really, really healthy. Lots of them look really delicious. So yeah, I think she also acknowledges that she's had a food writer working with her on the recipes, but she's written a nice introduction. She comes across as really sort of sensible. And one last one that I'll mention. This is one of the funniest books I've ever read in my life. It's that way around. Pearl Bailey, singer. She was in some movies. This is the funniest cookbook I've ever read in my life. It's hilarious. So if you if you fancy a laugh, get a copy of this on eBay or whatever, Pearl's Kitchen. I mean, the recipes are amazing. They're kind of real sort of Southern America cooking, but she's just got such a beautiful writing voice. She is hilarious. Shall I read you a bit?
Yeah.
See if I can find a bit. She says stuff about, oh yeah. So baked beef with cheese, she says, I won't try and do her accent. Just listen to the ingredients and see if your wig doesn't flip right off. Yeah, she's brilliant. Okay, get yourselves a copy of that. Right. I've been
Jenny, what was the title of the Vincent Price cookbook? That's the best one ever.
Okay, it's called A Treasury of Great Recipes. So it was originally published in 1965, but there has been a reissue. And I was at the launch of the reissue, which was in Harrods because Harrods is mentioned in here, and I organised a tour of the Harrods food halls before they were open with Victoria Price, who's Vincent Price's daughter. And we had I think there were about 20 people, and we had breakfast in the restaurant before it was opened, and they cooked some Vincent Price Buckingham eggs, which is one of the recipes in the treasury. It was just an amazing day. Actually being in the food halls before they were open was just such a privilege. It was just incredible. Yeah, that was amazing. I've had so many.
Is that the reissue there or the original copy?
I've got the okay. Oh,
is it the 65?
Actually, the reissues here is popping up my computer. Yeah. So that's the reissue.
Lovely. Yeah.
And I get a mention in the introduction.
Oh, Jenny.
I'm like Vincent Price's biggest fan, but not really the films, the recipes. And he also did LP records, and they are incredible. It's called the International Cookery Course, and he talks you through how to set an atmosphere for your dinner parties relating to what the food is and stuff like that. And it's just so lovely listening to his voice. Oh, it's gorgeous. It just makes you want to eat a banquet, cook a banquet and eat a banquet. So yeah.
How would you set the atmosphere? What does he tell you to do? I'm dying to know.
Well, okay, so there's one called I can't remember the name of the album, but it's about Indian food in its broadest possible sense. Bear in mind that these were made in the 70s. And he suggests wearing armfuls of bangles, having incense burning, and having sitar music playing when your guests arrive. And of course, I have done this. I've cooked some of the recipes from, he describes how to make these recipes, and there's also a little tiny leaflet in the album and on the back of the album sleeve with the recipes on. They're incredible. They're quite collectible. I don't know how much they would cost on the open market, but they're lovely things. They're just lovely to listen to. And he did do a television show in the 70s on UK TV called Cooking Pricewise. And my book, I've done a book, Vincent Price cookbook, with another writer, and that's coming out in November. We've paired 52 Vincent recipes with 52 of his co-stars like Jane Russell, Basil Rathbone, all those great horror actors. So that's coming out in November because he's prolific.
I think it was Mitch who asked for a Basil Rathbone recipe.
Yeah, Basil Rathbone. I've got a really nice Basil Rathbone India curry, he calls it. That's really good. That's a lamb curry. That's got apples, if I remember correctly. It's a while since I've made it, but that's very good. Boris Karloff got a nice steak and kidney pie. Boris Karloff. The recipes do tend to be quite meaty. There were a few actors who were really into health food, like Greta Garbo and Gloria Swanson. So their recipes can be a bit healthier. I'm trying to think of who's.
God, I have to tell you this. Have you ever read David Niven's? He just describes Gloria Swanson's snacks, and he calls them loathsome concoctions. I've forgotten it. It's just such a brilliant way of writing about health food.
David Niven is just brilliant. There's an article online where he shares a couple of his recipes, and there's a brilliant story about some party. Oh, I can't remember it now, but yeah, what a brilliant writer he is. And also, have you read any Dirk Bogarde, Mitch?
Yes, he's very good, isn't he? Yeah.
He's also really, really excellent writer. I haven't read any of his fiction, but his autobiographies are just brilliant.
They're brilliant.
Really?
I think a lot of actors were, really multi-talented.
Charlotte, Lottie's got Gregory Peck.
Gregory Peck, yes. I've made a Gregory Peck ratatouille.
Oh, can I just say, if you can get hold of Heidi Lamar's autobiography, it is just the best ever.
I haven't read
Have you
that.
got it? Ecstasy. It's called Ecstasy and Me. It is just the best read.
I'll write that down.
Writing that down, Mitch. Thanks. Ecstasy and Me.
I've seen the film. She's naked in it, isn't she?
Oh, it was an absolute scandal, that film.
Yeah. I'll write that down. Thanks for that top tip. I love reading movie star autobiographies. They're just, you know, I'm just reading.
I love them.
Yeah.
Neve actually recommended a Marilyn Monroe book to me because I was talking to her about Marilyn Monroe, and I'm just reading it now, and it's by a woman who worked for her, and it's really fantastic. Because when I do my,
which one is it, Jenny?
I've got it here actually. This is just a lovely book. When I'm writing about movie stars, because I've got a blog, Silver Screen Suppers, for those who haven't heard me banging on about it. But I like to either read the autobiographies or stuff by people that actually knew them, rather than people looking back, biographers, you know, looking back. I find it much more interesting. And this was a woman who was her kind of dresser. She sort of looked after all her clothes, but she also did a lot of cooking for her. And there's great stuff in here about how when Marilyn woke up every morning, the first thing she wanted was a Bloody Mary. She drank Piper Heidsieck champagne all day long, and she loved lasagna. So that's as much as I can tell you so far. But yes, KK, I recommend this. It's lovely.
How about Rupert Everett? Have you read his?
No, he's a bit modern for me.
Oh, he's a really good writer. They're brilliant, actually.
Is he? I'll write him down as well. I'm looking for a pen. Not a very good writer. I haven't got a pen handy, but yeah, I'm writing these down. Yeah. So any other stars anyone wants?
What champagne did you say? Sorry to interrupt. Marilyn Monroe was drinking?
Piper Heidsieck. I don't know how you pronounce it. Yeah. But she drank a lot of champagne.
Well, one of my favourites was Grace Kelly.
Lovely Grace Kelly. Yes. I have a pissaladière recipe by Grace Kelly, which I've made a few times, which is delicious. I don't know if you folks know.
Well, sorry, what was it? I missed what you called it.
It's called I can't pronounce it. Pissaladière. I think it's the French version of a pizza. It's like a pizza, but it's tomatoes and onions, lots of onions in the spreading, and then you put anchovies and olives in a kind of crisscross pattern. So it's a bit like a pizza. It hasn't got any cheese on it though, but it is delicious. That's on my blog if you want to make it, Barry.
Okay.
I've put the link everyone in the chat.
When I was about 11 or something, I wanted to be really grown up. So my mum gave me some money, and it was in Paris, and I went to the restaurant with my sister by ourselves, and we ordered those pizzas by accident, and they were just pizzas covered in onions. And then a woman sat next to us with her poodle feeding it spaghetti bolognese. We were so embarrassed that we wouldn't eat it and we wouldn't leave. So we sat there crying, and we were gone so long. My mum came and found us and paid and took us home. It was a complete disaster. It was that.
You thought you were going to get a nice cheesy pizza, and you
got
that.
It was just three pizzas covered in onions, and we were just froze. We didn't know what to do, and we were gone so long. She came and found us sitting there, and I was crying.
Oh,
love it.
What about Maggie? Who's Smith in The Pride of Miss Jean Brodie? Was she ever into cooking or anything?
Oh, I'll have to check the spreadsheet.
Because I watched that today.
I used to love that. I used to love The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie.
Yeah, I had a kind of Muriel Sparks rabbit hole today, and ended up watching that. It's bloody brilliant.
I think I have got something for her, but I haven't cooked any of her recipes. I'll look it up. Talk amongst yourselves.
Jo, how did your gazpacho go? Watching you busying yourself in the kitchen.
Yeah, it was yummy. Well, it is yummy. It's sitting in the fridge getting colder now because it was warm. But it was really delicious. Mine was redder because I didn't have a green pepper. So I had a red pepper, and it's tasty. It's good.
Oh, brilliant.
But my favorite story is about my dad, because he would make us gazpacho that was the one recipe he would do, followed by steak au roquefort. And but he made the gazpacho one holiday from memory, and he used Tabasco in it, which is like a chili drops.
Yeah.
And he because he was doing the recipe from memory, he put in 5 teaspoons of Tabasco instead of 5 drops.
Was it edible?
No, barely.
John Crawford's got a steak with Roquefort sauce recipe. It must have been a thing. I'm just looking for it.
He had recipe cards that were, but is it Robert Carrier recipe?
Oh
cards?
God, yes, I remember Robert Carrier. My mum had that book.
Yeah.
He was like the top guy, wasn't he, at one time?
Yeah.
Nothing in the spreadsheet for Maggie Smith, I'm afraid. I mean, the thing with the movie star recipes is they were, people really looked up to the movie stars in the 20s and 30s. They were like idols and people wanted to be like them. But the closer you get to today, the less people seem interested in that kind of thing. And then you get people like Gwyneth Paltrow, of course, published lots of cookbooks, and she's just like ridiculed. There's not the same sort of reverence for the movie stars now that there was. But
have you got Vivian Lee?
Lockdown, what did you think about that whole wave of actors that were just cooking from their lavish homes? Because I watched a few. I got into the Star Wars woman, young who played
Natalie Portman.
Yeah, I kind of do her roasted cauliflower and things like that. I did quite a few of hers. I did a few of Reese Witherspoon's.
Did you?
Things, because she also did a book club as well. But did you watch any of those? They're all on Instagram.
I tell you the thing I've watched over and over and over again, and that's Stanley Tucci making.
Oh my God!
Oh. Have you seen it, Nick?
I love that man. I absolutely love him. I just love him. Wasn't it amazing?
Oh, he's written 2 cookbooks.
Has he?
I've got one of them. I haven't
God,
cooked anything from it yet. Yeah, he's a really good cook.
Oh my God, have you seen Big Night? Have you seen?
No, I haven't. I keep meaning to watch that.
Got to see that film. It's so fantastic. Oh my God, it's just.
I know, that is on my watch list. I think I'm going to bump it up. He's gorgeous, isn't he?
What did he cook? What did he cook?
His cookbook is all Italian, because he's Italian, and he's married to, let me get this right, Emily Blunt's sister.
I know, I hate her.
So I think he lives part of the time in Highgate. So he lives here part of the time. So I've only got one of his cookbooks. I think he might have done 3 now, but it's very much Italian classics. They look good. I haven't made anything from it yet. As soon as someone tells me someone's got a cookbook, I just buy it and it just goes on the shelf, and I get around to it eventually.
During lockdown, I kept cycling up to Luigi's in Fulham and buying Parmigiana, and then we would all sit it and watch The Sopranos. And I said to my son, "Is this really racist of us or cultural appropriation?" And he said, "Mum, it's not anything if you don't put it on Instagram."
Yeah.
But we sat and ate Parmigiana and watched back-to-back Sopranos because I'd never seen it before. And
there is a Sopranos cookbook.
Oh, that's probably too young for you.
Yeah. I don't think it's any of the stars. I don't know, actually. I have got it. I could go and grab it. But
that's all they ever said. I got a Parmigiana. I got a Parmigiana. I got a Parmigiana.
Yeah, there's spin-off cookbooks from shows are quite good. There's the Mad Men cookbook. I've got that. That's fun. But really, the ones that I love are written by the stars themselves, So yeah, the Pearl Bailey book is just genius. Love it.
My first ever crush was a telly chef, and he was called Galloping Gourmet. Did you have him here?
Graham Kerr, yeah.
Oh my God, I was about 6 actually. I remember just having the most enormous crush on him when I was 6.
Mitch,
I know,
galloping.
but I do remember it seriously. I remember being that young and thinking, I think I love you.
Oh, that's cute.
What's Linda making? Are you doing gazpacho, or have you elevated to something else?
So I got all these vegetables last week from the farm down the road. I live in the suburbs of Detroit. It's like masses of highways and strip malls and subdivisions of all the houses looking the same and apartment complexes. And right in the middle, there's this beautiful farm with split rail fence around it, horses and sheep, and they grow vegetables, and you can sign up for a season and pay for vegetables throughout the season. And over here, we call that a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture.
Nice.
So I get these beautiful vegetables, including these, which I have no idea what to do with. I'm scared of them.
Are they the little peppers that you Spanish
Yeah,
peppers
little
that you
peppers.
fry?
Yeah.
Oh, I love those.
Just chop one up, no more than one in any meal.
hurt your hands, or
No, they're not that strong. They're not that.
so I don't need to like roast them and peel off the skin and all that.
Oh, can't you just roast them? Just roast the whole pan of them. They're really lovely.
Yeah.
Tasty.
Roast them and do what with them?
Eat
You
them.
just eat them whole. You just, yeah.
It's a Mexican recipe.
Okay. Well, I wanted to put some in the
Just test them first to make sure
Mm,
they're not too
test-
hot for you.
Yeah, try a tiny bit and see.
Okay. All right.
You never know.
Yeah. So anyway, I've got I don't know if anybody can see this, but these tomatoes that I had, they were beautiful, but they're a few days old, and they were big, orange, gorgeous things, but they had gotten to a mush. I mean, nothing gross on them, but just like so mushy that I literally was just tearing them apart with my hands. But did you leave the seeds in your tomatoes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Leave them in. That's no problem. Yeah.
Right. I just took them all out, which probably was a mistake because I bet that's where a lot of the flavor is. But anyway, so I'm adding more than your recipe calls for because I got to use up these vegetables, because today is the pickup day. So these are last week's vegetables, and I just haven't had a chance to cook them.
It's actually a really good recipe for using up tomatoes. Like, if you've got a load of cherry tomatoes, just bung them in your blender. It's great.
Yeah. So I'm missing I'm missing garlic, and I think that's it. Everything else, I still have lots of things to cook with.
Yeah. It'd be really nice.
I'm making a whole cucumber. It's not a big one, but it's not as small as the one you had. So
Yeah. Oh, it'd be delicious.
with all this stuff anyway. But this is oftentimes where I cut up my vegetables. I just get this. It's something I develop, a special technique I developed during lockdown. You just put on Netflix and chop the vegetables.
Brilliant idea. That's why my life was improved when it suddenly dawned on me that I could have a DVD player in the kitchen.
I'm the lazy chef sitting on the couch.
So talking about Stanley Tucci, he of
Yeah.
course played Julia Child's husband.
Yeah, I love that film,
Yeah.
Barry. That's a great film, isn't it?
Yeah.
And actually, the book that's based on is the reason I started my blog. I started my blog 15 years ago. I read that book. It must have come out like 16, 17 years ago. And I was just in Waterstones, and they have those display books. And I just saw it, and for some weird reason picked it up. And I was living on a houseboat, and I just come out of a disastrous relationship. My heart was broken in two, everybody.
Oh,
I
my
was
darling.
absolutely distraught. I was living on this houseboat and I'd been collecting movie star recipes for about 5 years. And I thought I was just in a terrible state. And I thought, I've been meaning to cook some of these recipes for years. So that's when I started cooking them, and haven't looked back since. I started my blog. That was in the days before nobody took food photographs, nobody even put recipes up. So I was just like, I made Betty Davis's baked beans today. They were really nice. That was about it.
Love it.
Because I wasn't writing for an audience. It's really interesting looking back on it, actually, because I didn't really know what blogs were for. For me, it was just like a sort of online diary, just a way of recording what I'd cooked. And so I didn't put the recipes up. I certainly didn't take any photographs of food, not until a few years ago. Nobody did they?
I think that I really like urban art and about how you actually can make so much progress, even being anonymous and just doing stuff on the street that's left.
Yeah.
Follow, and I've sold loads of work over lockdown, and I started years and years ago anonymously, and I still am. Loads of stuff I do on leave on the street. But following on from our talk about love letters, I did that this week. I got all my son's old books and I wrote it, printed out a love letter, and I covered the books in them, and then I went and dropped them in Vauxhall in that psychic garden or whatever, and left them in there. So I thought actually we could all remember just to actually put our writing into the world.
Yeah.
And then I put loads of love letters on tags, and I got loads of Christmas decorations of hearts, and then I just went and put them all over people's front doors and churches.
What
and
a fabulous idea. I love that.
And I think, you know, that we can just actually remember to give beautiful things back to the community and whoever comes across it.
Yeah, I love that.
I love that, Tracy.
And I did that for years when I was brokenhearted.
Oh my goodness, too broken.
Literally used to go out every night and paint on mattresses. But I didn't write anything nice. I was just like, fuck your lonely heart and things like that. Like really spewing. And then it was years later that someone said, there's a man just going around London putting abuse on mattresses. And so I, you know, people are going to catch on that it's you. And then I looked it up, and there were just loads of people on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, just posting these mattresses. And I never thought about social media then, that how other people were photographing them and talking about them and giving their own meaning to them, but not anything to do with my meaning.
That's interesting, isn't it? Other people interpreting your stuff.
Yeah, so like I wrote one that was like, fuck off back to paradise, because I saw my ex-boyfriend was on holiday with his wife, and someone thought I was being anti like immigration, that I was telling people to like go back to their countries. I mean, it was so mixed, you know, really positive, but it grew and grew, and then eventually I started selling it. And then the best karma was I ended up doing a Tate Late, like at the Tate Modern, and like showing all the loads of mattresses. And it was just a really good karma after actually what was still at the point of me being really brokenhearted. And I remember I didn't really tell anyone about the Tate, and I took my kids, and it wasn't until we were going up in the elevator they were like, oh, we are in the Tate, we just thought you were joking. And people said, oh, why didn't you tell us? And I said, because I kind of wasn't about that. Like it really was just the end of just the worst time in my life. It really it was just awful.
Did you show the actual mattresses? Did you find the mattresses again, or they printed the mattresses?
No, what I do it now. I just sold some this week. I go out, I paint on dumped mattresses, photograph them, and then send them to this like a gallery and deal, and they print them and sell them. Or people contact me on Instagram and I print them and sell them. And then I'm doing another, and then the Tate randomly have asked me to do something else, through somebody else, another project, and I'm going to make it more storytelling. But I think actually, even with your recipes, like I would actually print them up and then leave your details of where your blog is and leave where you are, and actually wheat paste them, stick them on tables, benches, like put them in the community.
What a brilliant idea. I've never thought of doing anything like that, Tracy.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
little like cards or like
Yeah,
postcard
put them on
recipe
pin
with your
boards,
postcard
restaurants
collection.
and cafes, and put images, and I think just make it available, make recipes available, and I bet you'll see another momentum grow because you're just giving something.
Oh my goodness, I love that.
This is just so brilliant, because this is so weird actually, because it all started with my postcard collection. I've got thousands of movie star postcards, and the other day I was thinking I'm going to start sending these out to people, because there's no point me having them just in massive boxes. So that is what I'm going to do, Tracy. I'm going to write their recipe on the back of the postcard that's got them on it and leave it somewhere.
Yeah. And it's
Oh my goodness,
because
I love it.
I never ever thought to look, and someone told me, and when I looked, there were 2 years of people spotting these mattresses around London. And then I met a girl on Instagram who did it in Paris, and I didn't know her, but I went and flew to Paris, train, and I spent 3 days in Paris with her.
Wow.
And she was so sexy and gorgeous, and she photographs mattresses, and they would be like sexy dumped mattresses. She would make them amazing, and then I would paint them and film them. And I looked around once, there were like loads of guards and loads of police standing around me, and they were like, what is this woman doing? And she started screaming at them in French. And when we got in the taxi, she was going, I am not going to explain to you the madness of this woman's mind. I can't explain to you what she's doing. Don't ask me. You know. And you know, I've been to New York and done it. I've been to LA and done it. I think you just can build community, and then it's come back in money, but it never set up like that. So I think about money that we were talking about, I do think there's a certain amount of give, isn't there?
Jenny, tell us about your serialized.
Oh yeah, so the next book I'm doing is Murder, She Cooked, and I decided I'd serialize it for free on Substack. And it's interesting what you're saying, isn't it, Tracy? Sometimes you do these things for free, you don't think about how it's going to make you any money, but then brilliant things come out of it, like that experience with the French, you know, with the French woman. You get all these things if you put stuff out there just to be expansive and share it. Brilliant things happen.
So sorry, I've got to go, but this sorry, see ya.
Sorry, because I've worked in archives all my sort of career. There's a tendency in archives for people to try and keep everything, you know, like keep it all close and not let people see it. But once you start putting it out there, all brilliant things start happening, you know, things happen in the universe. And I'm just loving that idea, and I'm going to do it, Tracy. I'm doing it. Oh, yes.
Let's put the Substack, murdershecooked.substack. I think I've signed up, actually.
The first one went out today, and I got an email from Tim Benzie, who's the guy, I mentioned it the other day, Tracy, you were there. He does this thing called Solve Along a Murder, She Wrote, and it's like a live show, and he shows an episode and he dresses up as a Jessica Fletcher, and it's mad and brilliant and hilarious. And I just got an email from him saying, this is great. And to me, that's fine, that's enough. It's worth me doing it. If Tim Benzie thinks it's great, then I'm happy.
Hey everyone, I think I'm going to just thank Jenny and turn off the recording, because I think there's a booking after us, which is why maybe.
Sorry, I've been blathering on.
That was terrific.
Jenny, thank you so much.
It's so fun talking to you.
Oh,
It's so interesting.
I'm going to have mine now.
Oh, enjoy your gazpacho.